Hey everybody, haven't been on in a while. Completely on me. Completely on me. But I've been busy, but I'm back on. And I come on these lives again to preach and speak of the message of waking the giant, reclaiming our roots as Indigenous people, and standing on that truth. Standing on our own 2 feet in pride and dignity of our own race as Indigenous people. Oftentimes we forget that we are native, we are indigenous to these lands, because it has been a strategic tool used by the United States government, used by the Mexican government, colonial governments, to make us feel like we are foreigners. We're imposed this foreigner mentality about who we are. Mexicans are seen as the ultimate foreigner. When you think of the foreigner stereotype, Mexican immigrants are one of the first things that come to mind. We're called border hoppers, wetbacks, spics, all these different terms and labels that are very prejudiced and stereotypical that imply that we ourselves are, unindigenous to this land. But we are indigenous. We're native. We're actually the most native to this land. It's ironic. It's very ironic that the colonizer has us believing that we are the foreigners on our own indigenous homelands. Many of the Mexicans you see from day to day are just as Native American as the natives you'll see on the reservation in the United States. But we're treated as if we are foreigners. We're treated as if we are Hispanics. We are treated as if we are Latinos. And these terms mean that we are nothing more but white, that we are only European. And I know I haven't been on for a while, but I'm back on again. And I'm still here with the same message I had a couple months ago, but I'm going to attack this thing until the day I die. And the message is liberation for a race, liberation for a people. And that doesn't just go for Native Americans who are from the United States. That doesn't just go for Native Americans of Mexico. That doesn't just go for Indigenous Americans of Brazil. It goes for the entire continent of the Americas itself. There's a European Union. The whites have a European Union. There are African unions. There are Asian unions. But when it comes to Native Americans, Indigenous Americans, we don't have the same type of unity. And it's because when we are together, we are the strongest. We are very strong. We are a force to be reckoned with. Thank you for the compliments. I appreciate that. But again, why I'm here, why I'm talking about this thing is, again, we need to be proud of who we are. We need to wake the sleeping giant. What is the sleeping giant? The majority of Mexicans are in fact Native American peoples, are in fact Indigenous American peoples. It's our time. A lot of what I talk about is bringing to light the fact that the term Latino and Hispanic, it embraces European ancestry only and European identity. It completely denies, dismisses, and blatantly ignores our Native American roots, our Native American identity. If you're a Mexican, if you're El Salvadorian, Honduran, the bulk of your culture The root of your culture is indigenous. It's Native American. And I don't mean to the United States, I mean on a continental level. Because the United States is not America. The Americas is a continent with diverse cultures and people. But we are all related. I'm indigenous to the Americas. I'm indigenous American. You can call me Native Mexican if you want. I'm not against that term necessarily either, but yeah, I come from the Yoreme people, also known as the Mayo Indians. Not Maya, not Maya like the Maya peoples, but Mayo, Yoreme. We're of northern Mexico. We're an indigenous group from northern Mexico. I'm going to introduce, I've been practicing and studying my language. I'm going to introduce myself in my people's language, in Yorumnoki. It goes like this. Kachamaleya enapo hunin huso takam. Yoram huara huasa bepa te apo nehume. Apolea sola encha makane. Hachiseane. I just greeted you. I said hello. I greet you. My name is Huso Takam, the seeds of a great tree. And I come from the Guasabepa, the Guasave band of Yoreme from Sinaloa, Mexico. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, my page has been growing. I'm proud to say I recently reached 60,000 followers on Instagram. You can follow me at _Gabriel Huso_. Again, this whole liberation movement that I'm about is not about blood quantum. It's not about being, it's about, having the average Mexican, for example, has around half to 65, sometimes even 90% Native American ancestry. More Native ancestry than European. But they will never tell you that. You have to dig for this information, but it's the truth. And it makes sense if you look at the history. There's only a couple thousand Spaniards that came to Mexico that intermingled with the native populations. And to figure out and come to the conclusion that the average Mexican probably has more Native American ancestry when we're on Native American lands, indigenous lands, is not really much of a shock if you really think about it. So the average Mexican is overwhelmingly Native American, indigenous American ancestry. And it's important that we understand that. And it's important that we reclaim, we embrace our ancestry as Native people. Yes, I'm aware that Raramuri, Yoreme, Yoeme are cousins. And I also know that the Seri, the Komkaak, are also our relatives as well. So I know that we are related. Do I believe in religion? I consider myself a spiritual person. I try to follow the ways of my people, but I respect all. Even if you're Catholic, even if you're a Christian, I will never berate or make you feel bad or beneath me because I am not of the same religion. If you're Islamic, Muslim, I will not, judge you either. But my own personal religion, spirituality, is not aligned with that. I don't hate Christian people. I don't hate Catholic people. But I do think that the religion itself has been used as a tool to colonize and harm indigenous peoples all across the globe, not just in Mexico, but in general. So I'm not against Christianity and Catholicism, but I'm against how it has been used via colonization, if that makes any sense. Why are Native Americans have less influence in US politics? I think part of it is the silencing that goes with Native American or Indigenous voices. I don't speak as a Native American from the United States. That's not my place. My history is a bit different. It's similar, but it's different. My people weren't forced onto reservations. We have pueblos, we have comunidades, but the way we were colonized is very different. But I myself do see myself as one of many voices for Native American peoples. I do see myself as someone who does speak for Native peoples, but I don't speak for any specific tribe. I just speak for myself individually. I speak on what I find as the truth from my research and the places I've been via my experiences. And I know that Native American peoples, we are a much bigger population than many like to think. We don't just live in the United States. We don't just live in Canada. We live all throughout the Americas. We live in Mexico. We live in El Salvador, Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Guatemala, Belize, etc. The whole entirety of the Americas is native lands, indigenous American land. And, we have to understand that, we are still the majority of this continent. Yes, many of us may be mixed, but we are still the majority. We still have a right to reclaim and embrace who we are. And, we need to be respected. Oftentimes, I think that we focus more so on issues from people who, indigenous voices are the least heard. And I respect Black Lives Matter. I respect Stop Asian Hate, but I think that, when we're talking about whose voices needs to be elevated the most, I believe that indigenous people, Native American peoples, their voice should be on the top, because we haven't been heard, or our voice is not respected in the same, light. I think we need to be respected on that same light. I don't think we have. Yeah, that's true. T-Hawk, he was an indigenous dude from Mexico. Yeah, I used to kick ass. I was in a Street Fighter video game contest. I played T-Hawk and I won first place. It was in Little Tokyo. They were having a Street Fighter competition, video game competition. I played T-Hawk and I beat everyone. I got first place. Fun fact. Yeah, T-Hawk was my man back in the day. Indigenous World Order. I love that. I'm stealing that. But I'm not like a colonizer. Indigenous World Order. I'm going to be making more moves this year. This year, I'm really going to try to push it. Be a little bit better than I have been. I just reached 60,000 followers on Instagram. But I'm going to really push it. I really believe in this message, and I really believe that this truth needs to be, the snowball effect for this truth needs to really grow. And we need to grow. This message needs to grow. It has to. A lot of people may think that my ring right here is from the Southwest, or it's from, the Southwest, from the Navajo or the Apache, and they have the same symbol. But I feel like this symbol right here is a unifier, because this symbol, this ring, is actually from South America. This ring is from the Mapuche people of Chile. I got it yesterday. And they also have the 4 directions. And I think this symbol is a great demonstration and a great example of how all of us in the Americas, we have symbols, stories, histories, and bloodline that all connects to one another. Because we are all one red race. We are all one brown nation. And while we may have diverse cultures, languages, and things of that, I do believe that we are one people and that we need to unite together against what has happened. Via colonization and the destruction of our identity and, the encroachment on our land of our lands. I'm gonna be moving over to Arizona, probably. I know I said I was gonna. Well, I'm gonna be in California for a month. Very soon in the Bay Area. If any of you guys want to reach out and hang out and do something, and I mean like help our people. I know I have some access to a sweat lodge over there in the Bay Area. We can go to a sweat lodge. I don't mind picking anyone up either, but I do want to do some more activist related things. What you would call activist related things. I'm open. If you're in San Francisco, if you want to connect, as long as you're not like some Jeffrey Dahmer-esque fuck, then we can go hang out. Go to a sweat lodge, do all the good stuff. Patrick Linhan, I'm down to hang. Follow me on Instagram and send me a DM. Gabriel Huso _ Gabriel Huso _. My goal is to liberate our people. So those Mexicans you see, those Chicanos you see, those so-called mestizos you see, I want them to reclaim their indigenous roots. I want them to know that they are children of this continent, they're children of this land, that they are native, and that they need to reclaim who they are. They need to, not even reclaim, embrace. They already are native. They already are a native people. They already practice native culture. It's just that the process of de-indianization has had our people believing that the practices they do are Latino. The practices they do are Hispanic, are from Spain, are European to some extent. They have not been properly taught and educated that what they practice, even in the culinary aspect, the food they eat, is indigenous. The bulk of it, the core of it, the heart of it, the heartbeat of Mexican culture, the heartbeat of so-called Latino culture is not from Spain. It is from indigenous systems of knowledge. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not connected to my native culture. I would argue you already are. If you grew up in a Mexican household, you already are. You just don't identify and you weren't educated. And it's not by you, it's by the forces of colonization. That what you are doing is indigenous. We can reclaim our ancestors. We can embrace our identity and our race as a people. This isn't something that has to be, you need to be a wild goose chase to acknowledge and understand what you are. You already are. Right now, you already are. Right now in your seat, as you sit right now. You have the blood through your veins. You are a son of the land or a daughter of the land. You are native. And I don't think it's right to tell our people that they aren't Indian anymore, that they're not native anymore. I have lived in Mexico. Someone said, go live in Mexico, bro. I have lived in Mexico. I lived in Tijuana. I lived in what's that one? I lived in Todos Santos a little bit. I lived in different places in Mexico. But I think that a lot of our people are caught under this they're caught under this web, this idea that we cannot embrace our own race. We can embrace. We are the only group of people. We are the only race of people out of any group that has to have a prerequisite in order to claim our own race. People say that, oh, but being indigenous is much more than a bloodline or ancestry. It's also the way you grew up and the community you belong to. I would say yes. That's the case if you're trying to claim a specific tribe, a specific native nation. But to claim your indigenous identity, you claim your indigenous on an ancestral tip, on a racial tip, there's nothing wrong with claiming what you are. I would never tell an African American that they could not claim being black or African American just because they didn't know what specific tribe in Africa they descend from. Why? Why wouldn't I judge them for that? It's because the transatlantic slave trade happened. I'm not gonna say that they're not African American anymore because the transatlantic slave trade happened. And when you look at our numbers, when you look at the Americas, the colonization was arguably the largest genocide in human history, right? Was in the Americas, the continent of the Americas. The most deaths, the most widespread disease, the most cultural, linguistic genocide, right? That is, what happened to our people. But we have to still jump all through all these hurdles just to reclaim our race. The Mexicans don't identify as being indigenous because they've been colonized and brainwashed not to. They've been taught that being native is something bad, that's something you need to hide, that's something you don't talk about. And they've been taught that being white is what is truthfully what they are, or what is right, is what they need to aspire to be. But you can never aspire to be something you inherently aren't. That's like me, being brainwashed to believe I'm African or I'm Asian when I'm not. I'm a native person. I'm an indigenous person. And with these projects of de-indianization, that's the actual name of it. Yeah, we can call it colonization, but we need to be very specific on what it is called. What is the actual term? De-indianization. De-indianization. There was an anthropologist, he wrote a book called Mexico Profundo, The Deep Mexico. And he coined the term de-indianization. It means basically what it sounds like. The process of basically colonizing indigenous people to a point where they no longer identify with being indigenous and they identify with the colonial Euro-settler state. That may look like nationalism, calling yourself American or Mexican or Guatemalan, Belizean. That may look like using terms such as Latino or Hispanic. That may look like calling yourself, those specific terms, a campesino, but not getting down to the root and the bone and getting specific. Why? Because if I teach you that what you are is inherently wrong, but I give you something else, another identity to swap it out with, right? It's easier to colonize you. It's easier to make you a subject of a European order, of a colonial order, to take your lands. Because if I believe that what you are is inherently dirty, you're never going to want to rebel. You're never going to want to resist. De-Indianization. And what we're doing here, what we're talking about is the solution to this issue, which is called re-Indianization. Re-Indianization. I am proposing, me, Gabriel Huso Takam, Gabriel Clark Faust, whatever you want to call me, Bear. I am proposing a re-Indianization act for all Mexicans, all Latinos, to re-Indianize, to embrace their race, to understand where their brown skin comes from, to understand that we are still native, that we are still native people. To be Mexican is to be an Indian person, to be an indigenous person. Re-Indianize. The process of embracing and reconnecting to one's indigenous roots. That is what I'm proposing. And I'm proposing that to all Mexicans, Belizeans, Peruvians, Guatemalans, etc., who have been under the tyranny and the oppression of colonial order since 1492. I'm proposing a deconstruction of mestizaje. I am proposing that we completely embrace our native roots. We identify as indigenous people. And I am saying we say it with our chests out. I'm not saying, and I'm saying that we have room for people who may be detribalized. For those who don't know their native, what native tribe they descend from, because of the circumstances of colonization. It's a tall order, I know, but I think it's good. But we have to reclaim and embrace who we are. Not Latino, not Hispanic. Abandon humanity and embrace the void. Not yet. Fucking. Well, I guess that was pretty much it, guys. I don't, I don't have anything else to say. Maybe I'll hang out here for a few minutes, but what can we do to support our northern cousins as southern natives? Support ourselves? I think we got to support ourselves first. Well, that's not true. Help them with their issues. If they have a protest, if they need supplies, if they need water, get a caravan. It's up to us to help them. Get a caravan going, get some waters, get some supplies, and bring it over to them. I think that there's a lot of miseducation between northern natives too. It's not just, you know, us indigenous people from Mexico and Latin America that have this issue of miseducation. It's also in the United States. A lot of US natives, not all, but a lot, don't recognize that we are their cousins, their relatives, you know. They don't see us, they see us as indigenous, but they don't understand that like how deep our histories really do intertwine. How closely related we really are. They may see it in a general human sense, but I notice that there isn't that same type of understanding that we are Native American people too. That same idea needs to be cultivated in order for the giant to be awoken. The same idea needs to be cultivated for the entire continent to be liberated. Yes, I'm aware some people think that Asian people or Native people are related. They may be. I mean, I think we are probably to some extent. I don't think that changes anything. It's becoming more well known. The average Mexican is starting to understand himself a bit more. I say that specifically with Mexican because that's the community I come from. But in general, it has gotten better. There are communities of Mexicans embracing their indigenous identity and trying to claim it. But I also argue that we don't necessarily need to try to cling on to some, indigenous nation of the past that, may not necessarily accept you. I fully embrace the idea of embracing your own form of indigenous identity, native identity, and then creating your own communities. Not everything needs to be so strict on how you are native today. I would say learn from the people, learn from the indigenous people who practice traditional ways, soak up information and knowledge, but don't be afraid to cultivate your own way. As we look at the Métis people of Canada, they are a people of French and Indigenous Canadian ancestry, and they've made their own unique cultural identity, their own Indigenous identity. I see that being plausible for a lot of Native communities, a lot of communities in the Americas, in Latin America. There is no reason why we could not do the same. There is no reason why we cannot embrace and create and cultivate our own new, nations. That doesn't have to be something that is crazy. That doesn't need to be something seen as something that's implausible. It can happen. What are your thoughts on Afrocentrics trying to blackwash Native history? I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. They're trying to take our culture for themselves. They're trying to say that Native people are truly just Asian people and that the true Native people are black people, which I don't agree with. They're not. They aren't. They aren't Native American people. Call me crazy. Their people come from Africa. And I feel like they've just been so colonized and brainwashed to believe that everything from Africa, right? The tribal peoples, they have no inherent beauty of their own. That they have to cling on to what they believe as this romanticized stereotypical idea of a Native American and claim it for themselves. That's what I think. They are called Wabos, and I don't agree with them. I think they're full of shit, and they need to stop trying to claim other races. They don't just, it's not unique just to Native American people. They do the same shit with other groups, even Europeans. I think that they're a pseudo-historical, wannabe Native group, and they should be treated as such. They have no, I don't respect them. I don't respect them. All Mex are not black, they're Native. Come here, baby. 1 second, guys.